Hi there. Smith asked me if I could talk to you guys about some of my high school and college experiences in hopes that maybe you guys could understand some of the issues that I was going through as a student in high school and that continue to follow me through life. As some of you guys probably know, I graduated high school a semester early in order to start training for my college soccer career. High school was kind of a bad experience for me, both academically and socially, so when my coach offered this opportunity to me, I easily jumped at it. As my mom and I arrived at Iowa on the day that we moved into college, I think we got here at like 1 p.m. We started unpacking and moving into my dorm room, and by 2 o'clock, me and my roommate, who also graduated high school early, had to go and take athletic testing. I really wasn't sure what that meant. It didn't seem like that big of a deal to me. I got good grades in high school, so I just kind of figured I was more stressed out about finding the building than actually the test. So when I got there, I had to take a series of 4 tests. It was an oral math exam, I had to write an essay, and then I had to take a spelling test, and I had to take a out loud fluency test. And at that point, I knew I was kind of screwed. Because those are, especially spelling and fluency, were something I struggled extremely hard with all throughout my career at France Health School District. Before I was even able to leave the building after taking this test, the assessor kind of pulled me inside and was like, hey, we need to talk. And I was really confused because I was like, I didn't think I did that bad. Like, what's going on? She's like, you misspelled well over half of the test. And I was like, oh, well, this might be an issue then. So they wanted to take me in for further testing. And a few hours later, the University of Iowa was able to diagnose me with dyslexia, and then I also had a phonic coding disorder. And both of those things were never picked up by the 13 years I spent in the France Health School District. So I asked my mom about it, and she said that I was tested back in 3rd and 5th grade because she kind of thought there was some stuff going on. When I was still in 3rd grade, I'd get my B's and D's transposed, and I couldn't really even spell the word play or work because I heard like play and I think P-A-L-Y because that just is what it sounded like to me. And so I was never really good at that, so they had me tested then. But I was always in the smarter half of my grade or whatever. So I was able to test far enough that they didn't think it was an issue and I couldn't qualify for any more services. So throughout elementary school, I had an IEP for speech. But that was because I was really low with a lot of my pronunciation, and I still am. But I couldn't really do anything about the inability to read out loud or the inability to spell because I wasn't low enough for it. So this kind of thing really followed me throughout all of my career in France Health School District. My fluency was never as smooth or expressive as the other top grades or kids in the grade. As probably you know, I was always towards the top half of our school and that kind of stuff when it came to academics, and so when I was compared to the people that were always around me, I was never as good at vocabulary. I was never able to think of the right words at the right time and stuff like that. I was usually able to get by. I would talk really simplistically, or if I was writing an in-class essay, I would think of this big word I'd want to use, but then I'd be like, I have no idea how to spell that. So I'd either talk around it, or I would, just pick a much simpler term in order to make sure I spelled it right and stuff like that. Another really big thing that kind of came across me was when it came to reading out loud. I really struggled with it. To the point where whenever we would popcorn read, or if we were in class, each person had to read a paragraph, I wouldn't listen to anyone else, and I would just memorize the section that I thought I was gonna have to read in order to not blunder over every word that I was gonna say, because I really struggle when it comes to reading out loud. It was kind of even known in my friend group around that you never called on me for popcorn reading. I would be so mad at you because it was just something I always wanted to hide and just kind of never show. Also, as I've kind of mentioned, I have very atrocious spelling. I always had to work my butt off when it came to elementary school and the spelling tests that we'd have. I remember my mom would quiz me in the car going to soccer. I'd write out every word at least 10 times, trying to just make sure I memorized how to spell it. But it wasn't ever I truly was able to look at a word and sound it out and spell it. It was always just repetitions of me memorizing it. So some stuck with me and some didn't. And so there's still basic words that I struggle to spell today. Once I got into high school, some of the stuff really started coming more and more evident. I remember my first test my freshman year of high school, a pre-AP biology with Mr. Dalton. I was as you all know, I'm a very high achieving student, so I was in his room crying after I got my 80%. So sorry, Mr. Dalton, for that. And I remember looking back over the test, and I was so frustrated with myself because I knew all of the answers. I knew, mitochondria is a powerhouse of the cell and all that kind of stuff, but I wasn't able to read the question clearly because the test itself was long, and so I was so crunched for time under the test, I wasn't able to actually read the question correctly. So I was answering just complete random stuff that the question wasn't even asking, just because I was so like unable to read it and comprehend it and still have that kind of time pressure on me. Especially that was clear, I'd always read over the word not, or I would add in words into sentences and that kind of stuff. So it was always hard for me to like actually be able to take a test and show my true knowledge, because I'd be like just misreading the question. And it wasn't because of carelessness. I remember my mom was always on me, because she'd be like, how can you like mess up this test? Like, you know the information, you're just being like careless and misreading the word not, when like, and like I felt it too, like I thought I was just being stupid out there. But eventually I realized that like there's actually an issue. One of the biggest challenges for me throughout high school was taking a foreign language. That was really bad, because if you can imagine, I can't even find the right words and spell the right words in English, let alone Spanish. So that was always hard for me to figure anything out. So I was able to like conjugate verbs and that kind of stuff, because it was more formula based. But when it came to doing anything more expressive, like giving a lecture or writing an essay, I was completely screwed. I remember there was this time, and I was in Spanish 4, we had to write an essay, and I knew that it was not going to go well for me. So I was able to mock write the essay when I had full time, and I was able to de-stress at home that night. So I wrote out my essay, I went back in the morning, showed my teacher, he went over and edited it for me. And instead of being actually understanding the concepts, I memorized the essay word for word throughout the day. Luckily Spanish was my 7th hour, and I was able to get through the essay and like not have it go too crazy, and it worked out well for me. So that was my biggest thing, is I eventually learned how to play a system to get myself through high school. But like I always felt behind, or like I always felt like it was not like my place to be there, or I shouldn't be in honors classes because I wasn't as smart as the other people in my grade, because it was pretty evident that like there was something off, and I couldn't knew what. I just like thought everyone struggled this much, and it wasn't just me, but I was just being like dumb. Another very stressful thing for me was the ACT. As you can imagine, the reading section sucked. So for me here at Iowa, I'm on a 60% athletic scholarship. So in order for me to go to college at no cost, I needed to get a 33 on my ACT. Going into my freshman year, I got a 19. So I was like, well, we're kind of screwed. But I was able to like work at it, luckily, and I had really supportive parents. But I remember sitting at my kitchen counter, timing myself like a stopwatch of how fast I could read something and actually comprehend it. Because the whole thing is I'd read it and I'd be fine, but then I'd be like, what the heck did I just read? I would have no idea like what was going on. And so it was really stressful for me, because, you know, when it came to like a reading portion or like a big science text, like I wouldn't have the time to fully think it through. And therefore, like I would run out of time on the ACT, or like I'd just rush through questions and that kind of stuff, or I would try to like skim it, but like it never worked out well for me. So unfortunately, if I would have known I was dyslexic then, I would have qualified for like more time, and it probably would have been a lot easier to get that 33, but I did pull it off, so we're happy about that. And just there's always stupid stuff that happened. Like I will never forget, we were in San Francisco for journalism nationals, and we're walking in the hotel, and like you see like Salon A, Salon B for like the different like courses where the class is in or whatever. And I walk in, I was like, oh, like what class is yours? And I'm in Saloon B. And everyone just started laughing at me. And I was so confused, because I didn't understand like why. I was like, that's Saloon B. And they're like, no, that says salon. And it's like, it was always like the mispronunciation or not inability to be spelling and that kind of stuff that always threw me off. So I was always like able to laugh it off, and you know, I was always kind of teased about it, but like whatever. But now I know that there was like actually an issue going on. That wasn't just stupid. So I always blamed it on my blonde hair, but luckily there's actually something else going on there too. Many of you guys know my brother Zach. You know, he was super smart. As his 10 year at France Howell North, he was always getting good grades. He was top of his class, or always towards it. And so it was like a lot of pressure, like going into that and seeing like he was able to do all of this stuff and never have to study for it. Whereas I was putting in hours and hours every night, and I just kind of figured like I was unlucky, or like it didn't click as well for me as it did for him. And so like understanding that like there was actually an issue for there, like helps me so much now. And honestly, I'm happy about it, because I was really able to develop a work ethic and like learn how like what I needed to do to get there, even if it was harder for me than for other people. But it was kind of just always something that was like lingering over my head. So now I know that like being diagnosed with like, I know I still work hard today, but like I was able to like learn that I wasn't just stupid. And that was kind of the hardest part about it all. Is like I constantly was feeling like dumb. I always knew I was getting good grades, and like my report card showed and everything like that, but I never felt like I truly earned them, because I knew like my A compared to like the person's next to me A, like they were so much smarter than me, so how are we getting the same grade? I feel like a lot of times, like in class essays, like my spelling would be atrocious, but like I could actually like analyze text pretty well. So like it'd balance each other out. Our teachers would more like care about like the context and not like the basics. Even though like the basics are the stuff that I should have learned on pretty early that I never did. Even recently at Iowa, I was taking a test and they're like asking me, and like I just misspelled something so wrong that I got it wrong. And so it's just the basic stuff like that like I feel like people ignored once I got to high school because I was so basic, that kind of thing. And so like I had the hard part down, I just didn't have the easy stuff down, and like all that. And so I always felt stupid. So I like when they were able to diagnose me, they also diagnosed me with anxiety, which I'm sure if any of you guys had me in your class, you would fully guess that. I'm a little uptight, but it was always like, I feel like one of the reasons that happened was I was always so stressed out about comparing myself to others, and like, you know, how am I getting a 97 and he's getting a 96, but he can spell way better than I am, and he can talk way more eloquently and stuff like that, just because I was like, always felt behind. I always felt like 3 steps behind like the people in my class. And as you all probably remember, the class of 2019 is very competitive. And so I was just like felt dumb compared to all of them. I guess the most important thing like out of all this is like throughout my time at FHN, I've never gotten I've always gotten A's. I got an A in every class. I had a 4.7 GPA leaving high school. I got a 33 on my ACT. But it's important to know that high achieving students like me like have the ability like to be dyslexic. Like I said, my mom suspected something like might be off when I was back in elementary school, but like I said, they never tested low enough for me to qualify for any of the services. So I mean, it's the basic like symptoms, I guess, of, you know, inability to have like understand foreign language, writing way too simplistically for my age and for my level, having a hard time just with basic spelling, stuttering over like when you're reading out loud and trying to like adapt everything. And so it's just kind of like there's things that like hopefully knowing that like there are signs, even if like someone is high achieving, that they might just be finding like loopholes like I did, or they might just be trying to like get themselves through it just enough, even if they're struggling really hard with it. And like I said, that can really damage someone's mental health as well, just like the constant pressure of feeling stupid and not good enough to be where you are, like where you're ranked or whatever like that in the class stature. One thing that I really want to stress is, as you know, I am a very high achieving student. But that doesn't mean that, like, that means that anyone in the building could also have the possibility to be going through what I was going through. I mean, that means the people that are hiding in their chair when their teachers are, like, calling on people to read out loud. I definitely remember, like, slouching and always avoiding eye contact with teachers. Or the ones that feel like you're doing something wrong when the teacher's like, all right, I'll give you 5 minutes to read these 2 pages, and you're only, like, halfway done with the first one when she calls time, and you really don't even understand what you just read, but you're just trying to get through and, like, get as many keywords as you can to, like, just avoid the situation and know like enough to try to get through a discussion. Or the people that just are constantly getting picked on because they feel so stupid, and even though the report card says they're smart, if like people keep telling them that they're dumb or they may not be as smart as others in comparison, like that's a big struggle with people. So it's a lot of like stress to be where I am. I'm definitely happy that I know now that there's something wrong with me and everything, I guess. But like it can cause a lot of pressure. So there's a lot of stuff that like happened at FHN that was good, don't get me wrong, but then there's also like this constant reminder that like I like was different and no one really caught it. So I definitely hope that hearing my story can maybe catch a little bit of warning signs, because I would have loved for a couple more teachers to have been like, hey, like maybe we can like push her on a little bit more, or maybe like there actually is something wrong and she's not just this terrible at spelling as a senior in high school. And so I really appreciate everyone at FHN who did help me. And Ms. Stoker has been a huge help. Even now I still communicate with her and talk about it, but I really hope that this can help and really help spread like the issue a little bit more across the school. Thank you.